Hello, this is Lisa with Unexplained Arkansas, and today we're going to be doing episode 81, and it's going to be the Ozark Witches. And with me, and I'm so excited for this collaboration, is Ty King, and he's executive director of the Arkansas Podcast Collaborative. And I'm going to let him kind of talk about that, and then we'll get into the episode. So yay.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks for having me, first of all.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm glad you got that last word, collaborative, out.
Collaborative.
Everyone sort of, fumbles with it. And so,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe some different things we need to do there. But yeah, so the Arkansas Podcast Collaborative is a nonprofit 501c3 organization that serves nationally, trying to help podcasters or people that are interested in podcasting get access to resources that would normally cost them hundreds or thousands of dollars in coaching fees or even, consultations. And so we help get them connected to resources, and whether that is, like I said, the coaching portion, or if it's for, the technical part, or expertise
Like
or learning how to hit record. Yeah. And what to record on.
Yeah.
Those types of things, and even connecting some podcasters to grant money. And so that's been a great thing that we've been able to do over the past, few years. And so, yeah, that's our primary purpose. We are based in, Arkansas. And so our primary directive is for Arkansas and creating a very diverse field of podcasters here in the community, while also serving the rest of the country. But it benefits both, because we got some original types of content coming out of this state, right? And voices. And so it helps for us to learn from them to learn to us, and then everybody benefits.
Yay. Well, that's all. And how long have you been doing this?
Doing the nonprofit?
Yes.
Since 2022, I want to say.
Oh, cool.
Is when we,
okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I know, people that are familiar with us. I mean, if you're not, go check us out on the Facebook and stuff. But, you have been great to have us do some fun events. And, of course, we did the fun Halloween special.
The live show. Yeah.
Yes, the live show. That was so much fun. And hopefully we'll do that again. Are you going to do that this year too? Or
Yeah,
maybe?
we're talking to the library. The programs managers changed over, so I think hopefully we'll do something. And I don't know. It's
Halloween.
You're always like trying to do better. I know, because like your events, you go back through, and you sort of have a sigh, a breath of relief at the end of your events, because now it's over. But then you're like, you start thinking and criticizing about all the little parts of what could have gone better, and be like, okay, well, next time I need to do this.
Yeah, you can grow on it.
Exactly right.
Definitely.
Right.
I totally get that. But yeah, I love
sure.
Halloween. So that was so much fun. And then of course you guys did the Arcast Awards, and that was awesome. And of course, our listeners, I appreciate you guys for voting for us.
You guys did great.
Yeah, we were shocked, and now and of course, after that happened, we were like, oh, and we're award winning.
Right. Yeah.
We may be a lot of things, but now we're award winning.
Right.
So we were excited.
Well, not to make your head any bigger, but like, one of the things that, surprised me when I found about Unexplained Arkansas was the Facebook group. And I had just been searching for, I do that casually just every few times a week, you know what I mean? So we can grow our database of podcasts that are produced in the state. And I just search for, podcasts in Arkansas. Yours came up, and I saw there was a really active community and people that really are excited about the content. You don't normally see that. That's not incredibly common.
Yeah, we were shocked by that growth there as well. We're kind of, I will say, go follow us on Facebook if you're not, and invite others. But yeah, it was, it's been shocking and fun. We love our Facebook group. And when it was Amber and me, we were both posting. It's been a little daunting for me to be on my own posting. So I try to do my best, but yeah, that's something that I'll be, I don't know, growing in 25 as far as like just the social media, having it. And I'm also now on TikTok. So it's like, I try to focus on my Facebook group and then Instagram, and then I have branched out to TikTok. So I'm like, it's a little overwhelming me.
Yeah. Your TikToks come up all the time on my feed
now.
They? Yes.
Well, good. I'm like,
hey, it's Lisa. And I'm like, hey, it's Lisa. Hey, everyone starts out that way.
Like,
yeah.
I watch Amber. I'll do a plug for Amber, but she has 2 TikTok accounts. I think one's under just her name. And she talks about like, xenial stuff, like the 90s and all that good stuff. And then she does have her wigs, pigs, and pantyhose, which is just about designing women.
Okay.
So both are fun
Oh
if
my
you're
gosh.
into that. But those pop up on mine because I don't have many friends on TikTok. I have you, Amber. I have a few of Elle's friend anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, okay. I see Amber's content. I see your content. And then it's like Elle's friends. And
Yeah.
that's it. So,
Okay.
Because I'm
Gotcha.
like, none of my other friends I don't think are on TikTok. I'm of the Facebook. I feel like my age people are on the Facebook.
Yeah.
And I felt like that's probably why we grew on Facebook is because our demographics seem to be, 40s.
Sure.
40s plus. But I have noticed a lot of people, I don't know, this is a little weird thing, but I have noticed a lot of 40 plus people on TikTok now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like we took over Facebook and now I don't know, we're taking
Well,
over
it took
TikTok.
a while. I think they sort of like broke us in too, right? Because they
Yeah.
started sliding in the reels on
Yes.
Facebook, and most of them were just reposts from TikTok.
Yes.
And then there was the whole scare of TikTok going away, and then
Yes.
Facebook changing its rules and how it works. And so I think everybody's just trying to find their place right now on social media. So
yes.
yeah,
And I feel like TikTok's really targeting those, or trying. I mean, I don't know. They definitely are trying to keep their growth up. I've noticed
for sure. And you can find anything on there now. You can find videos about whatever. And so
I like to watch people doing hair or people cooking. I don't know. I don't do either well, but that's what I like to watch. Or cat videos.
Right.
So
Yeah. Very cool.
But so thank you, Ty. I know we're gonna dive into this episode. And just real quick pod business. I have some fun stuff coming out. Like I have some events that I'll tell you guys about. I do. Of course, I'm working on Unexplained America, and I'm so excited about that. Like, that's just in development, hopefully by April. That will be like, just the change will be done. And again, it's Unexplained Arkansas won't go anywhere. We're just going to be remodeling a bit. So
that's a good way to put it. Like
yeah, just a little touch up, like a kitchen remodel. So anyway, so stay tuned for that. But do go to my website, Unexplained Arkansas at Squarespace, because the merchandise is on sale. I do have a little inventory left, so just go check that out. And always email me at unexplainedarkansas@gmail. I will get out my new email when I phase into Unexplained America, but I will be checking the other as well. So you can reach me, message me, whatever. So yay. I'm excited about this episode though.
Yeah, for sure.
I looked up just a little bit
of
stuff, not a lot, because I don't know. I like to come in with a little bit of not, you know what I'm saying? But
sure.
But yeah, so this is all you. Ty's going to tell us about these Ozark
my gosh,
Witches.
I'm not such an expert on the other stuff. But the good thing is that nobody really is.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of information out there on this. So, but I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's fun information. So yeah, I know our listeners will love it. I mean, witches.
Yeah.
You got to love a witch story.
We've still got quite a few witches in Arkansas.
We do. And does it seem like, I know that is it like the Eureka Springs area that has some witches?
There's a lot there. There's Hot Spring. Like if you can go to most of the towns that are like not tiny, but also not by any means big, like Morrilton or, places like that, Mountain Home, like that. Mm-hmm. You can walk down the other downtown area where all the store shops and you'll see several of them that are just shuttered. But then you'll see like a random like Crystal and Reiki and all these other different types of places there. Yeah. You can usually find those types of
pretty eclectic. I feel like Arkansas is eclectic though.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Like you'll find like your antique store and then your crystal store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it always has been. And so that's why I'm excited about this.
Yeah. Love it.
Cool.
Well, I'm going to let you get started. So
you're going to let me get started. Okay.
Yeah,
so I'm going first.
Yeah.
Okay. So with witchcraft and witches and stuff, and I know that we're in the Bible Belt, right? And so anytime you mention that, there's sort of you know what I mean? And you hold up your fingers in the cross and then you splash a little holy water or whatever. but I think there was a misunderstanding in what witches were in
Yeah.
the early 1800s, especially. I mean, we still carry that now, right? There's still a stigma to someone being a witch. Like you don't really want to in Arkansas. You don't publicly tell, oh, this person's
A witch.
this is my attorney. This is my financial, but this person's a witch. Oh, okay. Then everybody sort of scoots away from that person, right?
Yes, because sometimes the word witch, and I mean, it has obviously a lot of, descriptive elements, and it's like they're not all kind, like,
Right,
oh, she's being a witch, like,
right.
so yeah, and then of course you have the whole Salem and then
Yeah, for
witchcraft
sure.
and all that stuff. But yeah, I think about like there I love Harry Potter. And I
Yeah.
am very much just very involved in my Baptist church.
Uh-huh.
But I
Uh-huh.
remember some of the churches in town when all that, in Cersei at least, when the Harry Potter came out, the books came out, the kids were we had like a bookstore, Books A Million at that time, and we would have like Harry Potter like launch parties, and
Yeah.
I mean some people were really against the Harry Potter,
Oh,
and then
super against it. Yeah. The churches put out
like
these videos that were so anti, and like it was for
mhm,
parents to be like, don't
yeah.
let your children read this. It's gonna lead them down
Yes.
the dark road.
Yes, and now that's so different, like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind
It's
of
just like, oh, it's
like
Harry Potter, it's kid
yeah,
stuff.
it's
Yeah.
just Harry Potter. I mean, it was just a
Yeah.
fictional book, and they were good. They were, they were good
Yeah.
witches, so I mean, there were bad witches in there
There
too,
were
but
there. Yeah, yeah, of
but they were
course.
good
Yeah.
witches, so yeah.
And I always see like stories like that as sort of an analogy of just like everybody has power within them, but it's how you use it for good or evil, you know what I mean? And learning from your mistakes. And so
Yeah,
there's
like
always like a universal lesson to be learned.
yes, and look at Harry, like, he could have chosen the dark like, he had the darkness in him,
Sure.
but he had the light. Anyway, I, team Gryffindor, yeah.
Okay, okay. You're a Gryffindor.
Mhm. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely.
yeah. So I've always been drawn to, I guess, the aspect of people getting some sort of spiritual connection to, like with like the witches or even like voodoo priestesses or what I mean, Celtic, what was considered witchcraft from them, where a lot of them just felt like they had this deep connection to nature, and
Mhm.
that's what allowed them to do whatever they thought they were doing, and that they
Mhm.
were moving
Like
energies
powers
around
or
from this,
mm,
sort of interconnectedness of everything in the universe, but especially on this planet, and how nature and humans are connected. And so if you affect one thing, then inevitably you affect something else, kind of like a
mhm.
nervous system.
Yeah.
And so it's just interesting that the people that think that
Mhm.
way.
Yes,
um,
definitely.
and I'm not to say that they're wrong or right, but it's just an interesting sort of thought, because it sort of comes from, and we'll learn about that. But here in America, the Native Americans, all of
Mhm.
them were very, very deeply engaged in nature. You know what I mean? There
Mhm.
was a sort of give and take, transactional sort of relationship with the
Yes.
earth itself.
And it
Right?
seemed like it was like, um, well, their gods, so to speak, were Earth related, like Mother Earth, or
Sure.
yeah, it seemed that way. I don't know. I'm not an authority
Well, there were a
on
lot of
any
things
of
that were
it.
sacred. Yeah, right. And so it
Mhm.
was sacred, and he didn't, kill an animal without having a purpose for it. It wasn't just simply to, you know what I mean? So there was respect for what was natural that wasn't human,
Mhm.
while also, having this give and take relationship. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
anyway, so what we're talking about, the area of the Ozarks, right? So
Mhm.
that's also contentious, right? What is the Ozarks?
Yes, so yeah, like a lot of people, if you look on the internet, like for some reason, and we've gotten into this, like they think the Ozarks are part of like the Appalachians. And
Hmm.
actually, I didn't realize that the Ozarks, I mean, I knew we had the Ozarks
Yeah,
and Missouri has the
right.
Ozarks, but also Oklahoma and Kansas. And I didn't even, like, that didn't even enter my thought. So,
Yeah,
because of where the Ozarks were, or extended, I guess.
right.
I just thought we know they're in Missouri because of the
Right.
show
Yeah.
Ozark. No, and but then I knew they were here. So,
Yeah. And it's kind of, I don't know, there's not like a clear cut to me. Like every map
mhm,
I've ever seen of the Ozarks, there's always like
mhm,
these, you have the big peaks, and that's what we know of going through Arkansas and mostly Missouri. But like
mhm.
then you have the smaller hills and mountains that are like off of the sides of it. And where do you
Yes,
actually cut it off?
like
Because we are in
draw the
very
line.
hilly territory,
Mhm.
right?
Yes, we are. And I know it's like the Boston Mountains make up the Ozarks, Is there another mountain range, or is it just the Boston Mountains?
I don't honestly know.
Okay, I don't know that either.
Like I
People
said,
phone us in on that one. Like, I don't know. Yeah, because when I did research on a different topic, and we were looking at the Ozarks, it just mentioned the Boston Mountains, I think. So anyway, I don't know, but it's so pretty. The Ozarks are pretty.
Yeah.
I don't think people think. I mean, if you're not from this area and you only watch Netflix, you might just think Ozark is just like redneck hillbillies out on a lake.
Wrong.
You're
but
not off.
But it's not just that. Yeah.
Like there's just such this from the show.
Right.
It's like, oh, they just gamble and it's just a drug ring. And anyway, but I grew up like my family, I'm from Missouri. My dad and my stepmom and brothers, like I have family still in the St. Louis area, but they go over to the Ozarks quite a bit. I mean, the Lake of the Ozarks is like a big to-do. And then, of course, we go like to the Ozarks. I'm air quoting, but like Branson. Like I think of Branson.
Sure.
We go over there a lot.
Okay.
So that's when I feel like I'm in the Ozarks.
Yeah.
When I go to the lake,
when
of
you
the
go there
Ozarks with I would go with them to the lake, and then when I go to Branson, I'm like, oh, I'm in the Ozarks. But really, there's a lot of
there's a big portion that runs through Northwest Arkansas, up in that area, and so
it's all the Ozarks.
Yeah, right, yeah,
and it's fun,
all the Ozarks.
And it's beautiful. Like, and Mountain Home is part of the Ozarks.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Is that right?
I thought you were telling me, not asking me.
Oh, no.
So I'm like, yeah, sure. Yes, Lisa.
Okay.
If you say it's true, it's true.
Yeah, because what we're talking about is that the realm of the area of the Ozarks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. In Northwest Arkansas and all the way through Missouri, mostly. So the big difference being that there was the high peaks, which of course inevitably makes valleys below it, right? Okay. So
gotta have if you have a peak, you're gonna have a valley.
Exactly. So before the 1800s, there was an indigenous influence, of course, the Osage people. They lived all through that area. They inhabited the Ozarks and with their own spiritual practices and their own connection to the land. So that always existed as far as we know, before, anybody else from another country even came in, right?
Yes,
so the citizens
or like the European settlers. So.
Right. So then this, in the Appalachian migration, so settlers of the Appalachia begin to arrive in the Ozarks, and they bring their own blend of folk traditions. And so it starts with the European roots. Okay, so the Europeans are first. Okay, this is kind of like a mix. We're going to get a mixed bag here. And it creates this own little special sort of recipe for the people that live here in the Ozarks. Yeah. So early settlers, primarily from the British Isles and Germany, brought their folklore and superstitions with them. Included long-held European stereotypes of the witch and as a malevolent figure. So even though they had their own things that would be considered, witchcraft by other people, they were like, witches are bad.
Witches are bad.
I mean? That's not what we know. We know that.
Yeah.
And
that really came over from from Great Britain, you think?
This is British Isles, and in Germany, so there's lots of folklore. If you think about the Black Forest and any of the tales, the Brothers Grimm stories, right? So
witches are bad.
Witches are always the bad guy. Yes. Yeah. Many of these settlers came from Appalachia, so they came to Appalachia first, and then they started coming down into the Ozarks, carrying a similar blend of European-derived folk traditions. And when they arrived at the Ozarks, this foundation of beliefs adapted and evolved. And so you already had the Osage that were there, and then now they're mixing with people from Europe, which is a wide variety of people as well, right? And so
all their beliefs,
these traditions, those traditions, and so all of these are sort of combining into one melting pot of a sort of a way of life. But the social divide happens here depending where you settle in the Ozarks. Period. Okay. So the social divide played a role. So settlers established themselves differently. So some made it to the valleys and stayed in the valleys, while others, they called them mountain folk. They were often,
I mean, for some reason the banjos just go off in my head.
So they were, yeah, exactly right. So they were also considered to be first arrivals, and so they were settling into the rugged terrain. They were sometimes viewed as suspicious by later arrivals, so people that came into the valleys later. And so who actually arrived first, I don't know. There's no record of that, you know what I mean? And it's so far behind, so long ago
Yeah.
that there's no like written, actual
Mhm.
account. So we're having to rely on word of
'Cause
mouth and
yeah,
yeah.
because this would be like the 1700s of it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or late 1700s-ish, you
Yeah,
think?
1820s going
Okay.
forward. And
Gotcha.
so, yeah. So this is even pre-Civil
Yeah.
War.
Yeah.
I mean,
Old.
old, a long time
Mhm.
ago. Yes.
Yes.
Um, and so the European influences that were coming into these were from the British Isles, the Celtic traditions, German traditions, and also, so a lot of these people that were moving into the valley were also plantation owners. And
Mhm.
so they were also bringing their African slaves with them as well. And so we had some that would escape. And so like it's all a lot of lore and folklore that's built
Mhm.
around this of like how the, mountain folk, quote unquote, yeah, actually came to be, or like how they got their influence of the way of life.
Mhm.
And so you had, like I said, a mix of the Native American Osage. You
Mhm.
have all the Europeans, and then now you have the African slaves that were also integrating and teaching things as well. And so all of them having their own sort of belief systems into
And I
creating
have
this
a
thing.
question because I really
Yeah.
don't know this. I've looked into to like the indigenous peoples
Yeah.
portion of it. But like, so if they came from did they have plantations in the Appalachians, like to
I
bring in
wouldn't think that
like,
they would be in the Appalachians,
were they
but I mean,
coming
like
from
down in
just?
the valley down in the Ozarks, you could definitely
Hmm.
grow cotton or
Oh, gotcha.
whatever you were growing there.
That's
Yeah.
very interesting because I've never thought about that, like them
I haven't
growing
either, but
cotton.
I wouldn't imagine that the
Hmm.
Appalachians were like fertile ground to grow
Yeah.
crops. You know what I mean?
No, you wouldn't.
Kind
I
of seems
mean,
like the soil wouldn't
uh-huh.
go very deep until you
Just
hit rock, and so it'd be
yeah.
hard to grow any kind of.
And I guess I'd also just think of them like being more northern,
Yeah,
you know.
sure.
Hmm. So that's interesting. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. So lots of peoples mixing it up.
lots of people mixing it up, and the valley folk were a completely different
Mm.
category of people than the mountain folk.
Did they feel like they were better than the
Oh
mountain?
yeah,
Oh,
oh yeah,
okay.
for sure.
Those valley people.
But it's
That's
because
cute.
they contributed to their perceptions of each other were
Hmm.
different because of that.
Yeah.
And then
Or
so
because they thought they were first.
it's
I think.
maybe it was a territorial type of thing,
Mhm.
but then also so the people that stayed in the valley, most of them were afraid to go into the mountains because
Mhm.
they seemed so dangerous
Yeah,
because of all the wild animals
that makes
and
sense.
dangerous cliffs and things like that, and that's why they
Uh,
kept to their safety down and down below.
yeah.
And they believed anybody that could go into the mountains and survive, they
Mhm.
must be in a pact with the devil.
Mm. Of course.
Yes, that's the only way you're going to survive and be, those
Oh my
animals
goodness.
in the wilderness. Yeah, of
I love
course.
it. If you're different from me and if you can survive some wilderness,
Yeah.
you have to be, you know.
So there was also these
That's
other
funny.
beliefs that were coming along. And by the way, there's not, like I said, there's not a whole lot of research that's been done on this.
Yeah.
We're mostly relying on the firsthand accounts of Vance, as we talked
Mhm.
about earlier,
Yeah. Mhm.
at his textbook, because he spent time with the mountain people.
Yeah.
But then also there was only one other lady that went there, and all she did was collect the folk songs,
Okay.
but it never got published. And so
Mm.
the University of Arkansas here has those records, but they've never been published as like a book
Okay.
or anything like that. So she never,
So we really just have the Vance Randolph books that
yeah.
he wrote.
And a lot of it was made up.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
turns out. Turns
Yes.
out he wanted some sensationalism, and this was,
Mhm.
he was a. I guess we can go ahead and talk about him,
Oh,
but
yeah.
he is just a folklorist,
Mhm.
which. Yes, that was an actual thing that you could do and get paid for.
It
Newspapers.
seems odd because did he start out his work in writing as a sports writer? Is that right?
I believe
I don't
so,
know.
but I'm
That's
not really sure.
It's
I
interesting.
know that he found himself there because he had heard about the people and like it enticed him, and he was specializing, quote unquote, in folklore and just
And all the
but he would write
stories.
articles for newspapers and excerpts for books and that type of
Mhm.
thing, research papers and stuff, and so it was something that people would actually pay for,
Mhm.
but wasn't a journalist, wasn't considered to be a journalist, even though
Mhm.
there was a lot of journalism involved, which is so
Yeah.
strange to me.
That is so strange. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I would definitely consider him. I think in today's terms, we would consider him I guess just a writer, but like definitely journalism and
Yeah, I mean, we
yeah.
would call that investigative journalism. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what you.
Yeah. We would, Vance. We would.
So, but no, he's so different.
Yeah.
Um, so he went, one time in like in late 1800s, and then came back in the 1920s, and then stayed
Mhm.
there for quite a while. And then wrote his books about that. But
Mhm.
so a lot of it comes from that. And a lot of it is also, stories from people that have lived there for a very long time, and a lot of stories from people from the Appalachian Mountains that have also passed down stories. And so a recounting of interviews plus these texts that we have. And so the information is very limited. So there's a lot of mystery that still, it swallows these people up. And so it's unexplained.
It's unexplained. Yeah.
He said
it truly is.
Yeah. Ba, ba, ba. That's where you play your intro music.
Yeah. I'm going to let you edit this. No, I'm just kidding. That's awesome.
So the division between the valley people and the mountain people were also there because they saw the mountain folk as probably being closer to nature, and therefore they were probably connected to the supernatural, which is spooky.
That is spooky. And and people always love a spooky story. I know I do. I love spooky seasons, spooky stories. Yeah, all of it. So this was fun for them. They didn't have phones. They didn't have flushable toilets, people. They didn't have anything.
Yeah. So did you hear about those mountain people?
Yeah.
Let me tell you about that.
Yeah. They had stories. And I guess they had newspapers, and that's really it. They had, crazy.
So, and then like we mentioned, Randolph going there, he wrote his book, and it often focused on sensationalized stereotypes of witches, perpetuating these older European ideas, and he spent considerable time collecting stories and beliefs, but approached them with an academic outsider's perspective. And so he, I'm just here to observe, guys, not to interfere, not to take part in your rituals,
just
to and
catalog and document.
Right, and him being the only one, and needing this book to really work for him so he could get paid and make a living, like how much of it is true and how much isn't. And so there's still a lot of
questions.
There's a debate about it because over time the historical perception of the witch as an evil figure was a strong influence in the Ozarks, and accusations of witchcraft could be used against marginalized individuals. And so just like they were in the witch trials, I'm sure you've covered that before, but you're like, I'm thinking not yet.
No.
Okay.
Maybe one day.
Yeah. Oh my God, I gotta connect you with there's a podcast that I know that they specifically talk about this, and that's all they talk about is the witch trials.
Oh my.
I met them. They're in Indiana, I want to say.
Oh,
but anyways,
interesting.
yeah.
Okay, well, I was expecting them to be in Massachusetts.
Right. And so they go there a lot. They actually have a nonprofit that's built around supporting people that have gone through witchcraft or like accusations and like even the people that are now living that are direct descendants from people who were burned at the stake or drowned in the lake because they were accused of being a witch.
Wow.
Like trying to help them get some sort of solace, and understanding.
That's
and
interesting.
Yeah, it's a really great.
Yeah,
for sure.
Because that was so sad. I mean, anyway. Just it happens where people, especially in the when was that? The 1700s, 1600s of it all? Goodness.
Yeah.
I mean, where you didn't really have like who's to say what's right or wrong. We're just gonna throw people under a bus and then burn them. Anyway, or drown them. Oh, horrible.
Yeah,
anyway.
there was some really horrible stuff that happened. So anyways, however, the reality was more complex than that. The healers were sometimes being the target of such accusations. And so I know you talked to me before we started recording about the healers.
Yes, we dove in a little bit on one of our, I think it was called Ozark Folktales. It was an episode that Amber did, and we talked briefly about the healing, like because this was before really what we think of as modern medicine.
Right.
So you did have a bunch of women, really, it sounded like, that kind of helped people when they were ill or, childbirth, like all the things.
Right.
So, because you couldn't just go to the hospital or the urgent clinic.
especially when you're in the Ozarks. And so those things didn't exist yet.
Yeah.
The hospital was the shack down, down the road there.
Yeah. I'm glad I didn't live in that time.
Oh my God. You mentioned how did you, if you lived through that time, you're something special.
I know.
You're really strong.
Yes.
Your immune system is amazing.
Doesn't sound fun.
No.
I like modern conveniences. So,
Yeah.
And I really don't love dirt. I mean,
I don't love dirt.
Dirt.
I don't think anybody loves dirt, but I mean,
some people do.
Yeah.
You think?
Okay.
I don't know, but I don't love. It's like there's a time and a place for it. but it seems like a really dirty,
Yeah.
like a dirty time
That needs to be one of your
period.
shirts. There's a time and a place for
There's a
dirt.
time and a place for it. Yes. I mean, like, when you're a kid and you play in the
Yeah.
dirt, that's fun. But just like when we did the White County Courthouse episode, it was like, it was hard to imagine, the streets are all dirty.
Yeah.
And it's just, and everything's dirty.
Sure.
It's like, ugh. Anyway.
Yeah.
Bunch of dirt.
No, yeah, and then you get kicked up, and then if there's wind, and then it's in your eyes, and it's in your face and stuff. I went to the Hot Springs Viking Festival this weekend.
Did you?
And it was all dirt floor, and like it was very windy, and so all of the booths and tents and like everything, all the things that people were trying to sell were just covered in
just a glaze
about
of
an inch of
dirt.
dirt. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, we were in Hot Springs.
They're like, I swear, this is supposed to be white. If you just watch it, I swear it's supposed to be white.
Okay. Yeah. We were there, and we went to I'll plug the Squeeze Box Pizza place downtown. Have you not been there?
You're blowing my mind. I have no idea what you're talking about right now.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Unplug the Squeeze Box.
It's called Squeeze Box Pizza.
Squeeze Box Pizza.
Yes,
no, I don't know what that is.
It is downtown Hot Springs. It is so good. But we went over there, I want to say Sunday. We were there for dance. So we were there Saturday and Sunday, which we go all the time to Hot Springs. But people came in dressed as Vikings.
Oh,
and so I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And then one of the people, the waiters were like, yeah, it's the Viking thing this weekend.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, cool. So, and you were there.
It was cool. Yeah, it's my first experience.
Oh, okay. Was it cool?
It was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And dirty.
You had a big mix of like, there was people that were walking around like you were talking about,
like dressed up.
Full Viking garb, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But then there were lots of just booths there that were selling like 3D printed little dragon toys and stuff like that. And there was like a lot of modern stuff mixed in with it. And so it's not the immersion I thought that it was going to be, but yeah.
Like it's also a mixed bag, just like this.
It is. Yeah. There's a little bit something for everyone.
That's awesome. Well, you need to eat at Squeeze Box.
Okay.
And the next time you're in Hot Springs.
Okay.
And really, DeLuca's Pizza, have you eaten there?
I've heard of that.
And Rocky's Corner, their pizza.
Okay. So
what did you eat?
I know we've turned into food corner, but Rolando's in Hot Springs is my favorite.
Okay,
love that place.
I'm pretty sure that's the one that is Amber's favorite, and that she took me to, and it was really good. Liked it a lot. There's so many good food places though. I'm a foodie,
God, yes.
but there's a lot. But like the Rocky's Corner, DeLuca's, the Colorado Grill. Oh,
I haven't been there either.
Oh my goodness, it's so good. Anyway, we could talk food forever in Hot
yeah.
Springs, but it's people just go.
Yeah.
If you're in Hot Springs, just go hungry and eat.
They probably have that too. Hungry food. Hungarian.
Just eat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, in modern times, pushing it forward to today, just to compare. So some practitioners are reclaiming the term witch, and challenging those negative stereotypes. Ozark folk magic, while still rooted in its history, continues to evolve, reflecting both continuity and change. The story of the witches in the Ozarks is a story of evolving beliefs influenced by European heritage, like we talked about, but it's kind of influenced by a little bit of everything. But there are a lot of similarities in some of those. Some of them. So like with witchcraft or sorcery, it's kind of it's subjective, right? So it's up to the person. What are your personal beliefs when you see somebody else do that? Is that witchcraft to you, or is that sorcery to you, or is it just healing? Is it just medicine? Is it just a way of life?
Yeah.
Or is it a religion? For like, voodoo, right? So voodoo is a religion.
Yeah, I don't really know a lot about voodoo, but other than what I've watched in the Disney movie, the princess and is it the princess and the frog?
With Louisiana.
There
so
you
that
go.
particular, so that comes from immigrants who came over and they brought their religion to voodoo, and then they integrated it to local values and terrain, and so it evolved into hoodoo, which is not a religion. Hoodoo is just the practice of that type of magic.
Like, is it more like a dark magic?
It can be, but just like with anything else, just like with these Ozark witches, like there are good ones and there are bad ones.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Like not all witches are the same.
Right. Not at all. There's Glinda.
And then there's Well, and
Elphaba.
Elphaba, but
Yeah.
she, in reality, anyway.
Yeah.
Depends on what
She
you're
wasn't
watching,
bad.
people.
Yeah, yeah,
She
yeah.
wasn't
Right,
bad.
right. Depends on your medium
Unless
that
you're
you're.
watching The Wizard of Oz, and then she was bad.
Right, right.
But I love Wicked.
Oh, I do too. I've
Mhm.
seen it probably 5 or 6 times
Oh,
now since it
goodness.
came out. Yeah.
Oh, now I have not seen the movie. I'm sure it's
Oh
fabulous.
my gosh.
But I love
Wow.
the Broadway show. Like,
See the movie. Got to.
I'll have to see
It's,
it, but
the performances are amazing. Anyways,
goodness.
we can turn this into a Wicked
I
podcast
know.
if you want to. Okay.
Witches.
So some of the beliefs and superstitions that I wanted to talk about, because a lot of the Ozark witches, once you get up in the mountains and actually see what they're doing, and you're not too afraid to leave the valley, you see that a lot of the things that they do are not something I would consider to be like magic. They're just like, okay, if your right eye twitches, it's going to be a bad day. If your left eye twitches, then the luck is in your favor that day. It's just silly stuff. Those are more like
Yeah.
superstitions than they
Like-
are like magic or
Yes.
determining something.
But who labeled them witches? Did they self-label,
That's a
or
great
were
question.
they
Well,
labeled?
no. They never self-labeled.
They're not self-labeled. So it's really they were called.
Well, I'd say
it.
never, but I mean, I'm sure there was probably a turn somewhere in the 19th, maybe the 20th century, where they started owning the term rather than coming up for it for themselves. They were already being called witches, and so they were like, you know what? We're witches.
We're
okay,
witches.
sure. Yeah.
Gotcha.
It kind of happens in society,
If you're gonna call me this, I'm gonna
Yeah.
be this.
Yeah, for sure. So they did believe in tokens and omens.
And
So
what would a
Yeah.
token be? I kind of understand an omen, but like, what would a token be?
a token would be like so something that represents something else, right? So it's a something that's a natural occurrence. Like, for instance, if you see a specific kind of bird, they had certain birds that they knew that if they saw that bird at that time of day, then it was going to indicate some sort of future event.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And 90% of the ones that I found, like, all dealt with rain. It's going to rain. And I was
That's
like,
funny.
okay.
Like,
well,
that's kind of like one of those, if the cows are laying down in the field.
Yes.
I think I probably got that wrong. But anyway, yes. Like,
Yeah.
oh, it's going to rain. Or
yeah,
something.
for sure. It's exactly like that.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's a whole
Interesting.
lot of like science or knowledge or anything or wisdom even behind it. It's
Yeah.
just that, like, well, that's the granny woman, and like you just trust her.
Mhm.
If she says that chicken right there means it's going to rain later today, then you better go ahead and get an umbrella.
Yeah, because it's like they're saying that maybe from just experiences, all these experiences, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And so also some of their beliefs. So they believe that the magic that they carry, that it comes from their European roots. And it can be passed down to other generations from the elders to the children. But they say that there's another way to get magic, that you don't have to have a history, like your family doesn't have to have this, ancestral
Okay.
connection to magic. And that's by interacting with the little folk, what they call them, which is their version of fairies, which comes from
Oh.
that Celtic belief of, the actual
goodness.
fairies, and they lived in the woods. And
Oh,
if you encountered one, that it could bless you to have the magical abilities and gifts.
that is super cute and a lot.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
fairies can give you this.
Yeah.
Fun.
And you just sort of accept that information. You're just like, oh, okay,
Oh,
cool.
okay.
If I ever see a fairy.
Awesome.
So I wonder how many kids actually went out in the woods trying to find these things.
Yeah.
And
That's
then,
interesting.
yeah.
Huh. Like, I would just think a kid would see like maybe a lightning bug and be like,
Yeah.
oh, that's a fairy.
well, that's what I wonder about. Like, what did they see that they thought were these quote unquote little people? Just like, seamen way back in the day seeing manatees and be like, that's a mermaid,
Yeah.
Yes.
A hideous one. Yeah.
They needed glasses, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're like,
They certainly saw a mermaid.
Yeah. In their mind. No.
So they also believed in haints, is what they called them. And really it's like haunts.
Okay.
But so this includes a variety of spirits, such as fairies we talked about, land spirits, and what they call boogers. Okay.
Okay.
So boogers were like ghostly apparitions that haunted a place. And they believed that they existed and they were around, and that a lot of them were malevolent. But that's where we get Booger Hollow.
Okay. Well, I was in my head, I don't know what I was watching I don't know what day it was or what I was watching, but they were talking about how the booger and then it became the boogie, like the boogeyman. I think now I remember. I was watching a show. It was on YouTube about Bigfoot.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was talking about historically, like what people would see. But so
Yeah.
who knows what they were seeing?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Can't say
Something.
for sure. Yeah.
Maybe a bear.
Right.
Sometimes they think that some of these Bigfoot people think that it's bear, but they walk totally different. Anyway.
Yeah.
We won't go down that path.
Okay.
But
That's
but that's what reminded me boogie. I was like, oh, okay. Or booger. Yeah.
right.
Interesting.
Yeah. So they're Booger, like I said, Booger Hollow, because the road, if you don't know what that is, it's a state park, right? Booger Hollow. Anyways, have
Oh,
you
you
been
got
there?
me. I'm going
I've
to
been
look this
there.
up. I have never been to
You've
Booger
never been
Hollow.
there? Have you ever heard of it?
Yes.
Okay.
But I've not been there, and
Wow.
I don't know. I'm going to look up where, is it in the
If
Ozarks
you're really
as
local, you
well?
call it Booger Holler.
I refuse.
Okay, good. Me
to
too.
say the word holler.
All right.
I joke with Amber. That's something that she can say, but not.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Okay.
And it's in Arkansas, right? Okay, I'm looking.
Yeah, Booger Hollow, and there's I think it's a national state or not, but state park, and
It's like a
there is a
town.
gift shop in there. You can go in and like you can buy gifts and things. Yeah, there's a hotel there.
Yeah, it's not like a city per se, but yeah, Booger Hollow Trading Post.
Yes, that's it. Trading Post.
And it is in Pope County. Yeah. And it was established in 1961.
Nice.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the road through that little whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
little place.
Little place.
Yeah, resort. whatever.
Community.
Yeah. It begins with the cemetery and it ends with the cemetery.
Ooh.
So they called it, Booger Hollow because they
Okay.
believed, okay, if there's a cemetery on both ends, everything in between's got to be haunted.
It's got to be.
It's got to be haunted.
Well, now I want to go.
Yeah.
I feel like I should go.
It's interesting. I remember going in the gift shop there,
Uh-huh.
and there was like these these things that you could supposedly only find in Arkansas. There were
Uh-huh.
Arkansas gifts,
And
and it was like the Arkansas toothbrush, and it was only big
gosh.
enough for your one tooth. Yeah.
It's one of the. I was about to say, was everything like on the back of it said "Made in China"? I'm like, it's wrong.
Probably. There was probably a lot of stuff made in China there.
Well, this looks fun. So it's very touristy.
Yeah.
And it's kind of on your way or through the Ozarks, right?
Yeah.
It appears that way.
Mhm.
This might have to be an unexplained adventure to go on.
Yeah, it's fun. I definitely recommend
Yeah.
going there at least once.
At
And it's
least
beautiful. At least once.
I like how you said that. At
Yeah,
least once.
Just once.
If you're not listening and you're not from Arkansas, you need to go to Booger Hollow.
Yeah.
Ty says at least once.
At least once.
But not twice. Okay.
And from what I remember, there is like a big bluff there, and you can see it's a very beautiful
Ooh.
view. So you get to overlook the trees
Oh,
and stuff on
awesome.
the side of the mountain. So
I
yeah,
love that.
and the way up there, of course, is very
Mm,
hilly and
beautiful.
climby, and so yeah.
yeah. Use your Dramamine if you get car sick.
Oh yes, and don't recommend electric vehicles unless you
Oh gosh. Yeah.
have a way to
Yeah.
fully charge before you go started.
I have I'm going to tell a story on my brother because he bought one of those new Hummers, and you cannot, I mean, there's not an option for gas. I mean, it is purely electric. Well, he wanted to take it from, he lives around Searcy. He wanted to take it to show my dad in St. Louis. So he thought, okay, I'm going to drive it, I mean, and it maps out everything, and it told him, you can make it to this spot and then charge a little. And then, so it all looked, like he could do it. Well, they get on the road and they live a little bit north of Searcy. They get on the interstate and he drives fast. He's probably going 80. And then all of a sudden he's like realizing the mileage is dropping and it's cold. So the cold makes a difference on those batteries. And then basically he would have had to been in a warmer climate, only going to like 60 miles per hour to actually make it the way it said.
Yeah.
So basically they had to turn around and get their other car.
Oh wow.
They would not have made it to a charger.
That's wild.
Because of the, going
Mhm.
80 and then the cold
Yeah.
just drained the battery.
No, for sure. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? So yeah, I
It
didn't even
is.
think about that.
I mean, I live it. So my car is also all
oh, are
electric.
you all
And
electric?
so I go
Oh,
to, Fayetteville a lot and up to the
oh.
Northwest
So you
Arkansas.
have to be
But
very
like,
careful.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
one charging station that's like reliable between here and there. That's in Clarksville of all places,
Oh,
in the
okay.
Walmart parking lot. There's a, like you go there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there's Electrify America Bank there. It's like you sit there and you charge your car for an hour or so, and so you just
Yeah.
walk around Walmart and do
Yeah.
whatever,
In Clarksville.
answer some emails in the car, whatever. Yeah, and then head the rest of the way up there. And then once you're up
Okay.
in Northwest, like there's chargers
There's
everywhere,
tons. Yeah.
right? And even free ones at the Walmarts up there. Like you can charge your car for free up there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
On the way back, I take the pig trail because it's all downhill, and like I'm just getting that charge all the way down. So by the time I exit the pig trail, I've got more of a charge than I had when I first started it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you know how it works.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah.
So I will not go all. I won't say ever, but I can barely plug in my phone. Ty, I'm not doing it. I'm just maybe a hybrid. I think Elle's car is like one of those. A hybrid.
Yeah.
I don't think my car is. I think it's just fuel. It says something about being fuel flex.
Okay. Yeah.
Whatever that means.
Then you should be
efficient. But
both. Yeah.
Yeah, but hers is like a hybrid.
Yeah.
Thingy. Whatever.
It's there's pros and cons to all of it. I mean, I don't have to get oil changes anymore. That's great.
Awesome.
Yeah, because there's nothing to change, no oil to put in.
And you
But
don't have
on the opposite end, Arkansas is not built with the infrastructure for electric vehicles yet. And so like the chargers are few and far between. The ones you find, people are not kind to public property. Imagine that.
Oh, yeah.
And so like finding one that works or isn't damaged, you know what I mean,
goodness.
is kind of a hassle and struggle.
That makes sense because even when you see those like free, what are they like to air up your tire? Like,
Yeah, the chucks are always missing or somebody cut those.
Yes. I mean, people do better.
Yeah, right. For sure. Okay, so the Ozark witch practices, so they have manipulation and neutral magic. So this is one way. Okay. So neutral being they're not good, they're not bad, they're just doing stuff.
They're just doing stuff.
Stuff.
That may or may not really be magic, right?
Right. So individuals with the gift, quote unquote, are believed to be able to manipulate a neutral force in the world. And so like I said, if it doesn't affect somebody else's life, directly, and it's just a minor thing that you changed for yourself, then it's neutral.
Yeah. So they felt, it's still like they felt like that was a power, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But also their knowledge of, like I said, that connection with nature that we talked about in the beginning. And so they use a lot of that and a lot of that faux science, sort of medicine to try to create, healing balms and that type of thing to help people get well.
Because back then they thought that you could just drain all your blood and you'd be fine. So
yeah, right. Leeches on your skin. Yes, for sure. So they did a lot of charms and spell work, use of charms and spells for various purposes, including healing, protection, influencing events. Practices are often kept secret and passed down through families. And so they're like a thing that you inherit, which is how a lot of people, one of the things I found was a great online sort of workshop that this new author had written a full book on those Ozark Witches. And, but he was a descendant of that and he was still practicing, but it was stuff that he had been taught and they had like handed down throughout the years. And he told a story about how when he was a kid, he remembers his grandfather, who was one of these, considered witches or whatever of the Ozarks, like he would collect people's warts.
Oh,
to
gross.
So if you had a wart, like in the community, you would go to him and then you would go to him. He would pay you like a dime or so. Like he would pay you for the wart.
Oh, goodness.
And so give you money for it. And then he would cut it off you. And so you don't have the wart anymore. And then he would collect that into a jar for whatever purposes for his rituals.
Oh, my.
For later on. Yeah. But that was like normal life for this kid growing up.
Yeah.
And then he gets out into the rest of society and
this isn't normal.
Yeah, he said he realized he was sitting in a class in university when they were talking about folklore and how certain medicine men or whatever did these types of things, and he was like, oh, that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
Like it didn't register, because you're so used to it.
Yeah, it was just his granddad,
right,
and his weird collection of disgusting
Yeah.
things.
One of the main things that I think that might have had some sort of African influence in this
Mhm.
community as well is because they use what's called spite dolls,
Oh, is that
which
like a
are
voodoo doll?
like a voodoo doll.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
But they can be used not just to make retribution against somebody else, but it
Mhm.
could also be used to heal somebody else by using these little dolls that they would make
Oh,
of the other person.
okay.
Okay.
Dolls freak me out on all levels. I'll just say it.
Yeah.
Freak me out.
Okay.
I didn't play with a lot of dolls, but
Yeah.
I wasn't really maternal growing up.
Okay. But they weren't made out of human hair either,
No.
or okay.
Oh, gross.
Okay.
No.
Good.
But dolls freak me out.
Yeah.
Mm.
I don't know
Ugh.
if you grew up in one of those communities where it's like we've got to we got to make you realize, hey, that's not normal. No.
No.
Okay.
I was always a city person. Okay.
A city person.
I feel like people that live in the country
Yeah.
might refer to something like such, but no.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No. Like Amber would be like, oh, yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I love her, but no. I was not a country person.
Yeah. No, I understood that. I grew up in the country, but
Did you?
was not a country person. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I would always get hurt if like I went to someone's house that they were considered, out in the country or rural or whatever, like just didn't know how to function.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like
I
I'm
hell, I
going.
just didn't like it, and I was like, I always dreamed of. I can't wait
You
to get
dreamt-
move to the city when I
You
get older.
dreamt of pavement.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
Society. It was so many different things.
Oh,
Things.
yes.
Those restaurants we were talking about in Hot Springs, like that was
mhm.
just a distant dream.
Yeah.
So yeah, these spite dolls were used. They're similar to voodoo dolls, like we talked about, and they were used as a part of a sympathetic magic as well, where they could not just for cursing, but also for healing at a distance. And so, if they couldn't directly get to the person that was sick, or if it was, maybe they had some sort of awareness that you can catch certain diseases and airborne sicknesses from them,
Oh, that's
even though they didn't
interesting.
have the science. Maybe they were aware
But
of
they
that.
noticed
Yeah.
it
And so they would be
happening.
able to heal them from a distance by creating these spite dolls and then treating the doll. And in turn, that person that's sick gets better and healing from from the distance.
And obviously, from our point of view now, we're like, oh, they just got better. And then nobody else
Yeah.
got sick because you stayed away
That's no
from
fun
them.
to think that way, Lisa. Not logical. Come on
I'm
now.
sorry. Now we're like,
And of course, they also have, folklore has accounts where they would depict witches using these to harm enemies as well.
Yeah.
So
The dolls,
stabbing
right.
the spite dolls just to hurt the people in the valley or somebody that stole a chicken or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is the mountain people that like to use the spike dolls?
Yes, for sure.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, there were none of the witches
No.
lived in the valley at all.
Okay.
Just to be clear. Yeah.
0 witches
Yes.
in the valley.
Right.
All the witchery mountains. Gotcha.
Exactly right.
Okay.
The people in the valley were like, that's Chenal, right? So Chenal Valley down in there.
like-
Downtown people were up on the mountain.
Let's go to Lulu and not get
Yeah.
a spike doll. Okay.
Right.
I'm with you.
Like I said, magical abilities can be transferred from older practitioners to the younger ones, such as child, grandchild, or apprentice. And then some individuals gain magical abilities through encounters with spirits, fairies, or otherworldly entities. And so it's kind of interesting that, when Vance left, there weren't, more people going into these communities, or maybe they just never came out. You know what I mean? And so that in itself kind of allows for your imagination to go wild. You know what I mean? Why is it that nobody ever wrote anything down? Did that also the people that are living there, did they know how to read and write? I don't know.
Yeah. That is a good question.
Yeah.
Some
And
of them
so-
may not have.
Yeah. And then of course they weren't, even if they were good, reading and writing, they weren't great at preserving,
Yeah. I mean, because they were really caught up in just probably the normal everyday, we've got to have food on our table and, and they couldn't go to the grocery store. So they were they were busy.
Yeah.
Like
They were watching birds to see if it was going to rain.
they were busy doing not fun stuff.
Surviving.
Yes,
Yes.
they were surviving.
Yeah.
And then telling fun stories on the side.
Yeah, for
to
sure.
each other.
And yeah, oh yeah, I can only imagine what they were
Hmm.
passing down,
Oh,
stories that
goodness.
they, yeah, for sure.
Sitting around fires because
Yeah.
they didn't have electricity.
So yeah, I thought that was, that's kind of all that I have for that.
Hmm.
But like, it's very interesting to me how, like I said, it's a melting pot of all these different cultures that sort of created what we consider to be, hillbillies or whatever.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's another just a connotation of these types of people that came out of so many different ethnic sort of
Hmm.
situations and beliefs that it kind of created its own thing. I mean, hillbillies haven't always been around, right?
Yeah.
They came from
Hmm.
something, just like every culture has come from something,
Yeah.
and that there was so much, of the neighbors around the mountains that were like, oh, those people, they're doing, they're doing
Uh-huh.
deals with the devil to be living in those woods. You know what I mean?
They
And
must.
yeah, they must be,
Because they're surviving
right,
in a very harsh environment.
right,
So that makes
yeah.
sense.
And that's kind of Arkansas.
It is
Right. So, I mean,
parts
as
of
a
it.
whole,
Yeah.
I know Walmart has recently called in all their, employees from across the country. Oh, you didn't know about that?
What's going on?
So all the ones that were remote around the country,
Uh huh.
if you wanted to continue working for Walmart,
Uh
which
huh.
if you don't know, that Walmart headquarters is in
And
Arkansas
yeah.
up northwest, and so in Bentonville, they said, well, if you want to keep working for us, you can no longer work from home,
Okay.
or where you're at in whatever state you're in.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to move to one of our headquarters, either in Arkansas or there's one in, I think, in California.
Oh,
And
okay.
so they had to make a choice. And so lots of people have been
Been
moving here
moving
over the
here.
past year, which like
Oh,
it's create
okay.
like this big housing market crisis there now.
Oh, like it was. Yeah.
Yeah, because everybody's buying homes because they're all having to move from all
Mm-hmm.
over the country, but it's made it even more diverse. But like for the rest of
Uh-huh.
Arkansas, where it's kind of, there's a reason why it's a flyover state, but it's also in the
Mm-hmm.
Bible Belt, but
Yeah.
it's above Louisiana, which has so much culture, but it's
Mm-hmm.
below Missouri. And
Mm-hmm.
we're kind of in this weird little spot in the US where we are kind of isolated,
Mm-hmm.
and we've developed this whole culture that is a mix of just all these different things, and we don't even realize it, like how much we get
Mm-hmm.
influenced by it every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're kind of, I mean, they always say like the gateway to the West was Missouri, but we
Yeah.
were also in
Right.
there. Arkansas was. So it's interesting. So people, but they were traveling and then they would just
Yeah.
stay. And when they realized how pretty it was.
Yeah,
So,
for
because we do have
sure.
a lot of, I mean, at least the northern part of our state, I don't want to down you guys in the South. What would you call that? The Delta. It's kind of flat and whatever.
Right.
It's good for farming and such, which is super helpful. But the northern part is just really pretty, like all the hills and these Ozarks where the witches hang out.
Which is so I wonder like what happened with them, like there's, because we know there's certain different times, there are like huge significant events that were happening
Hmm.
in the country, especially in Arkansas, throughout the time that they came in there and settled. So
Yeah.
I wonder what they were doing in like the Civil War, because
Hmm.
I just did another podcast,
Hmm.
talking and learning all about that. There was things I just never knew, which is
Hmm.
like the secession of, Arkansas from the Union, but not only from the Union, they also did not want to be part of the Confederacy. They wanted to be its own sort of little country on its
Yes.
own, even though we were bordering everybody else.
We
And
preferred that.
yeah, and we had our own little militia,
Which
and
makes
yeah,
sense as our because there were so many um people that were unionist and people that were it's like they couldn't agree really. It's like they didn't want to be a part really didn't want to be a part of the whole situation with the war. So it's like we're just going to do our own thing because I mean really we were only a part of the union if you look at the time frame for 20 years before that
right,
happened. So it's kind of like we've not really been here for a while. You people are crazy. So I can understand that. And it seems like, and it's interesting to me that a lot of people, I guess they feel like we're a Confederate state, or some
right.
people think that because
Because
we're,
we did end up joining the Confederacy, but
yes.
like a lot of the leaders at the time were not for
Yeah.
it.
They
They
were,
fought against it.
yes. And a lot of our early, governors and such were
Yeah.
unionist. And so, yeah, it's interesting. We were just kind of like right there on the cusp.
Yeah.
So,
For
but
them, they were kind of like on their own little island up
They
in the
were.
mountains where they're like,
Yeah.
I don't care what else goes on
Yeah,
around
I
here.
mean, we've got like witches.
Yeah. They don't want to come here because they're scared of us and they don't know how to survive. And you definitely can't fight a war up on the top of those mountains.
Yeah, we're survivors
yeah.
here.
So, well,
But I was born above the Mason-Dixon, so
okay.
it is what it is.
All right. Well,
Yeah, but I love Arkansas.
yeah.
I feel like I'm an Arkansan that was born above the Mason-Dixon. So,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Sure.
If that's helpful.
If it makes sense to you. Yeah, perfectly.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just like I'm a city person. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this is very interesting. So, I know we were talking about. Oh,
Huh? What?
are you done with
Well,
your part?
yeah, I wanted to say one more thing.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Mhm.
I had an experience with some of these Ozark Witches one
Ooh,
time.
yes, please.
Which is what had me interested in, like going back and learning about
Okay.
this history and lore about all this.
Mhm.
But I ended up, so I went out, it was my second date with this girl, and she took me to go to this little get together that was going to happen at a house. And it was just, she's like, it's, something very
Nothing.
cool.
Uh-huh.
And you
It
get
wa-
to experience
It
it.
was like a first date, second date.
Second.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And like
So
close by.
we ended up in
here?
this house. So it was in like near Valonia, if you
Okay.
know where that is.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. And so it was between Conway and Valonia. And we ended up
Okay.
at this house just out in the middle of the country somewhere.
Mhm.
And there was like a huge, bonfire that was going on out
Mhm.
there.
Uh-oh.
And there was
You're laughing.
where I'm like, okay, we're gonna just hang out and whatever. And like everybody, like we were the youngest people there. Everybody there was like, in their 50s and up.
Mm.
It was like, it was so strange,
Uh-huh.
and such a mix because they were the nicest people I had
Uh-huh.
ever met in my life.
Oh,
Like they
wow.
were so kind,
Uh-huh.
and there was nothing like it was like being surrounded by your your grandparents,
Yeah.
but there's like 15 of them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So
But they're
just
also doing witchy stuff.
okay. Do elaborate, Ty, on witchy stuff. I love it.
So
Mm,
playing, I don't even remember what it was. It was all
like
like percussive instruments that they were playing, and then they were
okay.
dancing around the fire and stuff.
Oh.
And so we did that. We ended up moving inside where they were all I don't really know what was going on, I'll be
Mhm.
honest with you.
Oh.
Like it was kind of just overwhelming and be like, I don't know if this is like a meeting of the minds or
Uh-huh.
if they just do this on a
Like a
regular basis and
like a
come and hang
party.
out and then
Mhm.
like, trade secrets or whatever. But
Uh-huh.
like a lot of them were just very kind and friendly and
Uh-huh.
just talking. But then you'd have like, a few of the, the older women were like making these sort of, I don't even. I compare it to like the Blair Witch Project. You know what I mean? Those little the stick
Oh.
things that they were like
Oh
hanging in.
goodness.
But they
Yeah.
were like definitely in
Like with
different
twigs.
different designs. I don't know if they were
Uh-huh.
like runes or something they were making,
Uh-huh.
but yeah, they were bending in sticks with
Oh.
twine and
That
rope
does creep me out.
and putting
'Cause,
it all together. Yeah,
you know,
they
the
were
Blair Witch. Mhm.
jarring different crazy things
Okay.
and but
Jarring. Oh
putting stuff in
no.
jars and
Like what?
I
Like
don't-
creepy stuff, like
I
warts.
don't. There's lots of like roots and
Herbs.
I didn't see any body parts
Herbs.
because that's definitely the first thing I was looking for. I was
Oh,
like, okay,
yeah.
let's see if there's anything in formaldehyde or
You're like,
something.
I'm out if I see a body part.
yeah. Or I'm at least curious.
Yeah.
So
I might
um,
look and then I'm leaving.
yeah. And so, anyways, that was my one experience. It's not a huge deal, but like it was very, very different and so weird because it was kind of the opposite of what I thought it was going to be.
Mhm.
There was no ritual sacrifice or anything like that, but there was
Ty.
it was just like a ton of
You're cracking me up.
grandparents just sort of
It's like
hanging out.
grandparents
Yeah.
hanging out. Okay, so before you went,
Yeah.
what was told to you?
Nothing.
I mean, nothing was told to you.
No.
Were you told something when you got there? Like,
No.
okay.
I wasn't forewarned about any of this. It was just, hey, come out.
So was your date, like, does she consider herself a witch?
I guess. I don't really
Did
even
she
know.
do anything or just hang out? I mean,
No, she just stuck around me and talked to me.
Oh, okay. Did they?
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say this. When I think of
Yeah.
witches, I think of, for some reason, people dressed like Stevie Nicks.
Yeah.
Was it that?
I mean,
Like flowy dress?
like today, Stevie Nicks, yes.
Okay.
You know how she dresses
Yes.
now compared to like,
Yeah, like she wears all black now,
yeah,
typically.
and very like, I don't know.
Like
I kind of,
conservative.
it's like,
It's flowy a little bit, but
hippie hillbilly type of,
hippie hillbilly.
hippie hillbilly. Yeah.
Okay. I have so many questions.
Yeah.
Did you go on a third date?
I ended up marrying her, but like,
Aw.
yeah, that's not very.
Oh,
It was a bad situation.
Oh,
Don't
okay.
all of that, please. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
That was my first marriage.
I'm
Yeah.
like, oh,
No.
how cute. But no.
No.
So that
yeah.
was the red flag?
No, not at all. No, there were
No?
plenty of red flags.
Oh, there were other
I was
red
just
flags.
so blind to the rest of them. You know what I mean?
She
Yeah.
was probably really cute.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So that's interesting. So
Yeah.
Valonia, and if you guys don't know where Valonia is, so it's kind of, you've got Little Rock right in the center of our state, and Conway's kind of 20 minutes outside of Little Rock, and Valonia's right there. And sadly, something unexplained about Valonia is they have been hard hit with tornadoes. I mean, it's such a thing there that, like, I think almost every home there, has like a tornado shelter. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's just a
Oh,
weird
for
little
most
tidbit.
of them, yeah, especially since the
Yes.
tornadoes that ripped through there like a few years ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess they're just
Tore
kind
the
of
entire town apart.
geographically, they're
Yeah.
just a
They
hotbed.
are the Oklahoma inside of Arkansas.
Yes, yes. It's scary. Like we kind of have, in Searcy. So Searcy has never been hit with a tornado, but we've got like Center Hill, which is right outside of Searcy, and it gets hit. So, I don't know. Anyway, so Valonia.
Yeah. Valonia.
And that's all.
And that's Valonia.
And that's all we have to say about that. Awesome. So, and that was your witchy thing?
Yeah, that was the last witchy thing I had. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I like when you say witchy, as in it's an adjective.
Yeah, it is.
I like that.
Yeah.
So,
Or if it's not, it should be.
So I had looked I didn't know anything about witches, and you had mentioned witches.
Mhm.
And so I just looked on the internet, and it mentioned a lady named Angie Paxton, and she was more like, she was born in the 1850s. And I think she has a lot of lore around her, and maybe she was considered a witch, but she was a fortune teller. And she would tell people, I'm not a witch, like I am a fortune teller. And I did find some newspaper articles about her that were interesting because, she was quite, the newspapers were kind of like a Facebook and maybe even like a social column they would have.
Yeah.
But like the newspapers followed her whereabouts. Like she was famous. And she was, from Arkansas. She was in the Mountain Home area, and she was just well known, and they would talk about her travels like in the newspaper. And then but she was very, like, her husband even would be like, because typically women go by their, like, Mrs. I think his name was James. It was like Mrs.
Sure.
James Paxton, but anyway, he would be like, Angie's traveling here, and she wants to do a little travel here. And I mean, it was like, it wasn't a bad connotation to her. Like, she was just famous, and she was famous for being a fortune teller.
Yeah.
But I don't think she liked the connotation witch, because she would correct it.
Yeah.
And be like, I'm not a witch, I'm a fortune teller.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I don't know. That interests me, because there's so many people that are,
Well, just like the rest of these people, I mean, they were just living life, being called witches from the outside perspective, right?
See, that's not fair.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
But then it goes back to me. It was like, well, what is a witch then, really? Because like
Yeah.
all of our beliefs, especially even early Germanic, or Germanic,
Yeah.
stories and folklore. You know what I mean? Like we talked about, the Brothers Grimm. So
Yeah.
the witch was always the bad person, but that seems like an
Mm.
outsider's perspective of someone being afraid of something they didn't understand, and so they put a bad name on it, and then
Mhm.
painted them out to be the bad person, right? And
Yes.
so.
And I almost feel like it was derogatory towards women. It was almost like,
Yeah, exactly.
an old.
Yeah. Don't step out of line. Be too smart.
Yeah,
Don't be
yeah.
too intelligent or know how to do too many things. Yes.
I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
come on. I don't know. Like, if you're old, or if you know stuff, or, you were a witch or something. I don't know. But whatever.
Yeah. Right.
We're all changing that. conversation out, because now people are, like you said, they're taking on that role, like claiming the role, such. Are there like was this scenario that you went to in Valonia, were like they a coven? Did they call
Maybe they
themselves a coven?
were a coven. I'm not really sure.
Okay.
They didn't formally announce it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we're the
coven.
We're the coven of Southwest Valonia, Arkansas, and tonight we're gonna have fun.
Well, thank you so much, Ty.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
Yes. When you said you want to talk about, when we were talking before about Ozark Witches, I'm like, yes, that is so interesting. Because I was born in the 80s. I dressed as a witch a few times.
Okay.
Witches were fun to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it was just fun. But
yeah,
not like a evil thing and then of course Harry Potter changed everything made, which is extremely awesome.
You're a wizard, Harry. Yeah.
I know. I just love Harry Potter. Anyway, so yay. So this was a fun episode. And I think we had asked a question of you guys earlier. And so you guys should phone in about that. I can't remember what the question was now. But anyway, well, this was lovely. So we'll do this again.
Awesome.
So thank you. And thank you guys for listening, and love ya. Bye.